So, a number of months ago, I was having a conversation with a cousin of mine who was 19 years old. And during this conversation, we had talked about a variety of different topics and such. Like I had mentioned how when I grew up, we had things like Sears, like Kmart, like Hollywood Video, if anyone remembers. But something that was really interesting that he had brought up was his ex girlfriend. And in particular, the whole kind of dating climate, dating market, if you want to put it that way. And telling me directly that he really doesn't see why men even bother with dating nowadays, why they overlook red flags, why they take the disrespect, why they put themselves in a position to potentially have their lives and well-being thrown in complete disarray. And what was so interesting about this is you see a lot of men who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even older having these kind of conversations. But this was a 19-year-old who was in university already having these kind of conversations. Now, what he had dealt with his ex-girlfriend, which, yes, he said I could talk about it, was that he had found out that she was using dating apps while in the relationship. They had broken up a number of months prior. And the way he found out was his friend was also on the dating apps and happened to see her on there, sent him a screenshot, and that was the end of the relationship. Good on him for putting the foot down. But my point being with this is, why would a girl who's in university even need to use dating apps in the first place? She has no shortage of a proximity of men around her. It's because she just wanted it for attention and validation. And if people haven't figured it out by now, that's really what dating apps are for. They're for attention and validation. I can't believe people still get on them and try to take them seriously, because for the most part, people that use them, they're just doing it for their own ego. They're doing it for their own ego because they have no real confidence. And they need the validation and messages to feel some form of importance and relevancy in their lives. And that's sad. It's very sad. So, with all this, when I was younger and used to use dating apps, because I had talked to him and told him that when I was his age, that was when social media and dating apps had started kind of entering into the mainstream kind of atmosphere, starting to get a broader sort of appeal. And even back then, when I was using them, I would see countless girls on there having their universities listed in their bio and their description, thinking to myself, you're at a big state university and you can't find a boyfriend? That goes to show one of two things. Either you are someone who is just looking for attention and validation, or you have so many red flags and you're so undateable that nobody wants to take you seriously and you have to resort to dating apps. One of those two things. And both of which are not good signs. So, the other thing too is I see, and from what he explained to me, it's something I've seen for some time now, is women not even knowing what they want in a relationship. Like, he had told me that there's a lot of women his age who are dating older men, but also told me that there was someone who has a lot of money, comes from a rich family, and there are women who are going to complain about a guy not having money and stuff like that, wanting to have what they see on social media because they think the grass is always greener. But then when they're with the guy with the money, it's not his money, it's his parents' money. So he's not self-made, so he's not good enough. So he's not a real man. And then when they're with someone who is in university, like my cousin, who is trying to better themselves and fix their life, and whether it's pursue a degree, whether it's pursue a job, whether it's pursue a trade, whatever it might be, then they'll say he doesn't have the money and he's broke. It's completely hypocritical. They don't know what they want. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this to be upfront. That's the observation that I've seen. Women nowadays are more confused and unsure than ever before. They've been so spoiled with attention and validation. That's something that men need to get better at, is stop giving it to them. Stop giving them the attention and validation on dating apps, on social media posts, wherever it might be. Women constantly testing men and playing games. We had talked about this too. Games over text. Games over things like who texts last, how long to wait between a text. The only tests that my cousin has time for are tests in the exam room. He doesn't have time for tests in the relationship. I've seen this a lot, regardless of the age. A woman's job should not be to make a man's life harder. It just should not. You should provide value to that man's life. If he's out working, providing for you, trying to build a future for himself, don't try to derail him with nonsense and tests. Men have enough tests and trials and tribulations in their life. The last thing they need is another, especially another that's unnecessary, where there is no good grade at the end. There is no graduation at the end. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And my cousin certainly does not have time for it. Now, is it a shame to see people at that age with that mindset? Some might say so. But understand why that has occurred. Understand why men well above his age have the same mindset. Now, he had also told me, which is something I had dealt with when I was around his age, 20, 21, up until 23, 24 years old, was seeing how a lot of the women and people in general really just wanted to engage in nightlife, wanted to engage in drinking, wanted to engage in activities that were really just detrimental. And you have people flunking out of school because they go there just to party. Like there's a university in the eastern side of the state I'm in where it's kind of the reputation of the college is a party school. People going there and just partying in the frats and flunking out. And my cousin is someone who is living off campus because he lives very close to the university. It's an in-state university. And he had a woman make a comment to him about how he lives with his parents. Meanwhile, she's at the university paid for by her parents. The tuition's paid for by her parents. She's in a dorm paid for by her parents. It doesn't make any sense. So what I had a lot of trouble with at his age was worrying about what other people think. These labels of living with your parents, not taking part in this, being an outsider, not having this many girls. Whatever things it might be, don't worry about stuff like that. Because you're going to make ridiculous decisions. You don't want to be one of these people that just goes through life trying to live for the appeasement of other people who, by the way, you barely even know. Who, by the way, are probably not even your real friends in the first place. And that's another topic that came up with him was friends and the way people act, like I mentioned with the partying and that kind of stuff. And friends teasing him for not wanting to play part in that. And I told him directly, in the time of social media, the time of jealousy, the time of envy, the time of ego, the time of disrespect, you can't afford to have that kind of company in your life. You have to be very careful with vetting who you allow into your life and who you even allow into your ear in terms of what they say. Because you don't want to let them derail you. And I told him directly, if you want to see who's really there for you, who's a real friend of yours, tell them some good news and see how they react. See how they react. Let them show their true colors. I remember when I had gotten into university from community college, which my journey was a lot different than his. I didn't go to school at 19 years old or 18 years old. I took a lot of time off. But I remember when I had gotten into the university, I told a friend of mine about the news, thinking he'd be happy for me. And I could tell there was almost resentment in his voice. You could tell he was almost angry, bitter about the fact that I had gotten to the university that I worked so hard to get into. And it was almost like pulling teeth, trying to get him to be genuinely happy for me, getting into this college. People will show their true colors. Even I've been around group settings and stuff like that where someone else will be doing bad. Whether it's with work, whether something happened to them. And the people will be talking about it. And you can almost tell a smirk on their face, like they're getting enjoyment out of that person's failure, out of that person's downfall. You need to be very careful with who you allow in your circle. And I'll be honest up front, I don't want to think like this. It's sad to think like this. But most people nowadays are not your friends, even the people that you talk to on a daily basis perhaps. They're just not. At that point, it's just a habit. Just like what my cousin had mentioned with the people partying and stuff like that, it's a distraction. What he should do is just focus on his studies, focus on himself, and focus on building his life. That's what he needs to focus on. And if you have good people in your life, that's great. If you have a brother or a cousin or a real friend in your life, that's all you need. You don't need to have all this popularity and this and that. I mean, the time I wasted at his age with worrying about stuff like that, just ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. And when it comes to the dating stuff, when it comes to the things he had told me about his ex-girlfriend, he's someone who stayed away from substances and stuff like that because we had a family member who had a big problem with going to bars and those kind of things. And he had seen that from a young age and knew not to emulate it. Now, I know some people will argue doing it socially, stuff like that. When he saw that, when he saw what our family member had dealt with, it's something he wanted to stay away from, understandably, right? Again, I'm not going to shame someone for a decision they try to make, especially a decision that's going to benefit them, a decision that they're doing for their own well-being. But I remember when I used to use those dating apps, like I had mentioned earlier, one of the last dates that I had went on there, is kind of connect to the broader point I'm making here, is it was a girl I had matched with who was around college age. And I had met her near a beach, and we had talked over the app for some time, connected over Instagram as well. And when I had met her, she was very different than her photos. I'll put it that way, without being mean. She wasn't a gym goer, quite the opposite. Again, very different than what appeared in the pictures. But me as someone who wanted to be respectful, right? Who wanted to have etiquette, open doors for people, say excuse me, say thank you. Be someone who's decent. I decided to still talk with her. Could I have just drove off? Sure. This was many years ago, but I decided to show some respect. Now, what I got to learn back then, because this was around the time I was his age, a little bit older perhaps, was that a lot of those people, a lot of those women, don't reciprocate that kind of respect. When I had talked to this girl, she made comments about me going to the gym and stuff like that, and we had talked about it. I talked about lifestyle choices and stuff like that. And she had asked me about my diet, and I had told her that I'm eating mostly things like ground beef, rice, vegetables, and she started rolling her eyes and looking away like she was like disgusted by it. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're someone who should be the first person to start focusing on that kind of stuff. Yet you're over here acting like it is some kind of big negative red flag, thinking that you're on top of the world. So I talked to this girl for like 30 minutes. We go our own ways. I see she has me unfollow her on Instagram. I'm thinking, great, I was going to unfollow her anyway. I don't really care at all. I'm not playing that game with people of social media. Like I said, whenever I meet someone, if their first thing is, hey, let's connect on Instagram, my first instinct is this is not going anywhere serious, friend or dating, whatever it might be. But my point being is, you want to show respect to people. You want to be decent. And you see you don't get it in return. Just go out and about nowadays. See the way people treat one another. See how people acknowledge you. See how fast people are to give you the time of day. Even eye contact, even acknowledgement, even a good morning. Even something that takes 5 seconds that could make someone's day. It's become scarce. And, and I feel sorry for a lot of young men nowadays. I really do. Right? Because they're having to deal with this at such a young age. It was already bad enough for Gen Z and millennials in many ways, right? But when I look at it now, especially as it pertains to dating, just absolute chaos. Really, the best way that I can put it. You have women now who will go to gyms and will set up tripods. You try not to trip over the tripods walking around the gym. People not putting the weights back because, again, people don't seem to have the decency and respect and etiquette that should exist. So you're tripping over those as well. And I saw this many times when I used to go to the gyms, where women will have hoodies wrapped around their waist, like they don't want men to look at them. Meanwhile, they're going to the gym wearing spandex shorts with their whole torso exposed, and then acting like they don't want male attention. Does that make any sense to the world? That's like me doing 30 minutes on the treadmill and going and eating a dozen donuts after. It's counterproductive. It doesn't make the littlest bit of sense. But as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video. And the point I want to make with this is seeing someone at that young of an age who already has that kind of mindset, who's already come to that conclusion, it says a lot. And me as a family member to him, me as a cousin to him, I'm going to be honest with him and upfront in my advice. But the best thing we can do, regardless of our age or where we are at, is just not surround yourself with negativity. Just don't surround yourself with things that are detrimental, habits or people. Those are the best things that we can do. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.